Welcome to Plausible Foolishness. We are your two kings of the Rube Empire. I'm the mad scientist, Matt, and I've got a perspective on things.
What's going on, everybody? The strong ones in the house, and I have a perspective on things as well. This might be the greatest moment of my life. I'm not going to lie to you. I think that this show is going to take it to the next level, and I can't even describe to you how intense it is. What episode is this? 140 what?
142.
142?
142.
Are you serious?
Yeah, 142.
We've been around that long?
We have been around that long.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Holy crap. And there are some crazy, spicy things coming up the pipe, and I do not mean a bad trip to Taco Bell. I'm talking about the best show that you've ever seen, and I'm excited to have it. Before we get into it, though, I got to get a lot of love to Big Dusty sitting in the right hand of the Kings over there. You'll never see him. He doesn't want to ever be on the show. Whatever, that's fine, but he's just bringing that spicy to another level, which is exciting. But make sure you follow us, check us out everywhere at Plausible Foolishness. We are still the fastest growing conservative content that's growing on twitch.tv/Plausible Foolishness. So make sure that you head over that way. We are the fastest growing show on twitch.tv/Plausible Foolishness. So make sure you check us out over there. We're on Facebook, Instagram. We're over on Parler. We're Clapper. Clapper's blown up. If you're not on Clapper, if you don't know what Clapper is literally this free speech alternative to TikTok. We're still over on TikTok. They've decided to shadow ban me a little bit, bro. They don't like
a little. Shit, you are eclipsed, completely gone.
What's funny is they don't like conservatives that happen to be my shade. I don't know what that is. I don't understand why that is. It's a little racist. I don't know, man.
Well, I mean, it is China. And what, Microsoft now?
Yeah, it's Microsoft now, so it's definitely racist now.
The best of both worlds.
The Chinese overlords and the
tech overlords.
The tech overlords have come together in TikTok. But Clapper is an amazing alternative. We're blown up over that way over in Clapper, so make sure you check us out over there as well. We are on locals. What was it?
PlausibleFoolishness.locals.com.
Yay, dating site.
It's not a dating site.
Are you sure? You sure it's not
we've
a
said
dating
this
site?
We've said this every week.
That sounds like a dating site.
Really?
No, it's like I'm talking to my daughters. Why do I have to repeat myself? It's not a dating site.
I just want to make sure, because we are, all three of the people on the show are married men.
Yes.
I happen to be, this is my 14th anniversary, so shout out to my wife. So thank you for letting me do the show today and have one of the greatest guests we've ever had.
Thank you.
Which I'm excited about. Thank you for releasing me, my beautiful wife, because you do rule my life other than Jesus, so I really appreciate you so much.
Yes.
But yeah, man, we're about to just get crazy with it, and I don't want to waste any more time.
Wait. There's one more thing that we should mention.
What do you got?
Today we're multi-streaming.
Multi-streaming?
That's right. The show is...
Where are we at?
I believe... I haven't tested it yet.
Whoa.
We probably should have tested it.
Forget that.
That's not how we roll here.
We don't roll that way. Not at all.
Not with this guy.
No, we go.
We should be streaming on YouTube and Facebook and Twitch all at the same time.
This is like the end of Endgame. Like when Doctor Strange.
Yeah, Doctor Strange just opened the portals, and now
that's what we're doing right here.
Now we're pouring out into all the streams,
and we're about to do that with the greatest guest that we've ever had on the show of all time.
Well, that's why I tried to. That's why I warp speeded this bad boy.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
So without further ado, can we get this guy on the show?
Yeah, let's get him on the show.
Who the heck do we got today, man?
We got a man by the name of Ben Adams.
What?
Yes, Ben Adams.
That's amazing.
I think Dusty can tell us a little bit more about who he is.
Well, I don't think I can do as well as Ben.
Well, let him talk about himself, man.
Well, let's just give us how we got in contact with him.
How do we know this guy?
I have the fortune to know his brother, Chris, who is a pastor in my church.
Nice. For
several years.
Okay.
We got to be very good friends, and every time I hung out with him and talked politics, he was like, "Dude, you really need to meet my brother Ben."
Wait, you have a pastor that talks about politics?
Oh yeah, all the time.
That happens in 2020 nowadays?
Occasionally.
Are you kidding me?
Wow.
Other than Big Eva telling us to be Democrats all the time?
Yeah, and finally
he goes, gotcha. That's crazy.
Finally he goes, "Listen, here's his number. Call him." And I did. I called Ben. I was like, "Ben, how are you? I have this little tiny show that I think you should be on."
Nice.
And here he is. Ben, how are you?
Thank you for joining us.
Hey, you
on
bet.
Plausible Foolishness.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I don't consider myself anything special, but I am super glad to be on your show. And yeah, this is gonna be a good one.
Ben, here's the reality of the situation, though. From just talking to you for 30 seconds before the show, it's going to be the greatest show of all time. And I can already tell you that. So I can guarantee that it is plausible foolishness. I am the foolishness part of the show. He's the plausible. But it's going to be amazing, and I'm excited to have you on the show, man. But if you could, for our audience, give us the Ben Adams 10-second tour. Who the heck are you? Why are you on the show? And why are you relevant to talk to today, man?
As if we have
Okay,
any right to
yeah,
ask that.
That's true. I mean, no, you got way more time than that. The show's an hour, so you're all good, man. Run with it, brother. Who are you?
Okay. Yeah, okay. So my name is Ben Adams. I live in Nampa, Idaho, which is about half an hour west of Boise. And I am a newly elected state representative in the
Congratulations,
state of
man.
Idaho.
Congratulations.
Well, thank God. Thank God, I'll tell you. I'm one of those people that actually believes that, God raises up people and puts them down when he's done with them.
Amen.
And I've never had really a huge drive to be in politics, to be honest with you, because it's a dirty game.
Right.
Those are usually the best politicians, though.
Fundamental. Right?
The people
Right.
that don't want to be in it are usually the best politicians.
So I guess let's see, I was born in Jupiter, Florida, so there's my Florida roots.
There you go.
And I grew up in a Christian home, the fourth of six kids. And when I was 3 years old, my family moved to Ukraine, 1992. So definitely an interesting time in global politics. I still remember a time when we understood that global communism was the number one enemy of the free world, and it still is. So everyone knows.
Yeah. There you go.
So lived there for 8 years. We would come back and do deputations. So I also had the privilege of being in churches all over this country throughout my childhood. But that period of time in Ukraine really shaped my perspective on America, because all the schools were Marxist schools, Leninist schools. So my parents decided to homeschool us. So we got a good American education. And so when I read about what our country was, this thing that gave us these incredible rights, where it made us almost untouchable in this country where everybody else was susceptible to, disappear. And we somehow had this little badge on us, right? That said, "Oh, they're Americans, so you can't touch them."
Yeah.
You want to know what that is. And so, I was given the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States and the Federalist Papers as an understanding of why America is what it is. Coming back to the United States.
You were getting that education. You were getting that education in Ukraine, correct?
Yeah, so I was getting it from my mom. She homeschooled all six of us, and all my friends around me were still getting trained in these, socially engineered schools. It's hard to kill an ideology.
Yeah.
And there, we could go into Ukraine and talk about that for an hour all by itself.
Oh yeah.
But after coming back, my family lived in Jupiter for, I guess, a year and a half or so. And, or I guess we actually lived in Hope Sound and then Stewart and then Port St. Lucie. So we were moving our way up the state.
Yep.
And my dad got an offer to go pastor in a little cherry farm town called Emmett, Idaho.
Nice.
And so we did.
Nice.
And when we got out there, it really felt like there was a sense of individualism out here that I resonated with. So I really put down some roots out here. Went to college for a year, realized that was not my mojo at the time. We can get on that too, but we shove these student loans in front of these 18-year-olds and say there's nothing else but education.
Yeah.
That's what the European system looks like.
Yep.
If you don't, your rate on what you're viewed as in society is tiered based off of how much education you have. That's not America.
Yep.
And that's kind of what's been trying to get pushed in here.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan. I don't think that is what makes you intelligent, or qualified necessarily to do something.
I would love to see like apprenticeships become more of a thing again.
Yeah.
Seriously, that is a great way of learning a career faster than any university.
And there's so
anywhere.
many careers for which that is totally viable.
Yep.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I totally agree. And after I did the failed college thing for a year, and here's the thing, I went to a Bible college, 2 different Bible colleges, so it's technically a year and a half, and I have nothing but good things to say about those schools.
Yep.
I learned a lot about myself, learned some of the best people I know came out of those schools with me, so yeah, but wasn't the time. God had other plans for me. I went up to Virginia. My parents had moved out of Idaho to Virginia to take care of my mom's parents, and so it turned into, okay, well, what am I supposed to do now? Because none of my family was in the place that I felt like was home, and so I prayed, and I felt like God was saying, hey, join the Marine Corps.
Hooah!
Fun
Hoorah.
fact. Yeah, it's oorah. I could
Hoorah.
say a very
Come on,
inappropriate
Dusty.
joke
Ah,
here.
sorry.
I'm not going to.
Hoorah!
I
You
apologize.
can tell I was not.
Ben, I
It's all
apologize
good.
for
I'll
Dusty.
hold it against.
Okay. Give
Please
me
don't.
1 second, Ben. Dusty! Okay,
No,
keep
no,
going. You're good.
no.
You're good. Sorry.
Notice I didn't
no,
open
I-
my mouth at all.
You don't
No, I
deserve
think
this.
it's good.
So you're in Virginia,
Every branch
kind
of
of wandering.
service has their purpose.
Yeah. So
They
you're
all
kind of
serve a
Virginia.
role.
Yeah. So you're in Virginia, kind of
I
like
just happen to
wandering.
join the best branch.
Yeah.
Yowie wowie!
Nice.
I wouldn't be a Marine if I didn't say that at least once.
Hey, amen. Amen.
Thank you, Dusty, for the gifted
Yeah.
subscription. He
What?
works for us and he supports us.
Well,
It's-
I have no idea what you're talking
Well,
about.
that's making up for the fact that you messed up.
Yeah.
You messed up a Marine chant, man. Come on, bro.
Yeah, whatever.
It is what it is. Now you're Ben, keep going though. You're in
Nah,
Virginia
you're
and you
solid,
joined the
man.
Marines. Yeah, man.
Yeah, so I felt like I was supposed to join the Marine Corps,
Nice.
and my family was shocked, to say the least. Now, I do come from a family that's not unfamiliar with sacrifice for this country. I have an uncle who spent 3.5 years at Walter Reed, getting his head put back together from Iraq.
Wow.
My great-grandfather and his brother are both buried in France from World War II. And then on my wife, ironically, who married me after I joined, but before I deployed for the first time, her great-grandfather was in World War II, or her grandfather was in World War II in the 101st Airborne. Came back with 2 Purple Hearts, and just these are different. I guess he used to joke about getting paid $50 of hazard pay to do a glide drop in those gliders. Those gliders had about a 30% chance that they weren't going to break apart on impact.
Oh my
Jeez.
gosh. That's insane.
Here's $50. But hey, $50 was a lot of money back then.
It's true.
Hey, go here and 30% chance of living through this. Okay.
Yeah, do it, man.
Isn't it
Yeah,
amazing?
and your life was pretty.
But a 0.07% chance of dying from a virus
Not from Rona?
shuts it down.
100%.
Shut it all down.
Totally different worlds, man. And I will say this before you keep going. Thank you for your service, man. We really appreciate you for doing what you do, man. Is that sacrifice is what allows us to have the freedoms that we have right now, that to do this show, to speak the truth, man. So we appreciate you for doing that, Ben. Thank you.
Amen.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's supposed to cover all the other ones too, all the other freedoms too, not just this.
Yeah, amen.
So we'll see about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I joined the Marine Corps. My military occupational specialty was chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear defense. So
You
the
know,
irony of it being COVID season is kind of humorous, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't really do very much of that in the Corps, to be honest with you. I got sent to an infantry battalion in Camp Lejeune and deployed twice to Afghanistan with them, and then and I guess and part of that was a Marine Expeditionary Unit too. Great experience. Very proud of the work we did. You can be proud of the work you did and not agree with why you were there or the decision to be there.
True.
But you can be proud of the work you did. We definitely were. We handled ourselves with honor, and that's important. Let's see. Yeah, came back to the States. Got stationed in San Diego, actually, for a brief stint. My son was born at the Naval Hospital there, San Diego, and when he was 3 months old, I got out of the Marine Corps and packed up my wife and kid and 2 dogs and moved back to Idaho.
Wait.
To a little.
You didn't want to stay in Southern California? What the heck, bro?
Why not?
You don't want to stay in Southern
Couldn't
California?
afford it.
True. 100%, man.
the $50
Yeah,
hazard
you know,
pay doesn't go as far in California.
Jeez, yeah.
Well, no, like I had a Toyota Tundra, and I had to pump my gas twice to fill her up.
Jeez.
Man.
It was crazy. You're paying $6.50 a gallon for gas on something that gets 12 to 14 miles a gallon in town. That's a struggle.
Yeah.
That's just one. I mean, that's just one thing. I mean, you talk about buying a house. You can't find a decent house for less than $400,000-$500,000. I mean, look, that can buy you a very, very nice place out here in Idaho. I'm just letting you know.
100%. I work with banks.
So
we were just joking around about San Diego, and I work with mortgages and whatnot, and the median right now the median household in San Diego County is like nearly $1 million. It's nearly $1 million just for
The
basic
median.
average, 2 bathroom, 3 bedroom homes. You know what I mean? It's insane. So I can imagine, man.
Now the weather's hard to beat. I'll give it that. The weather's hard to beat.
It's pretty good.
And
It's also
there
pretty
is
good in
a
Florida and a lot cheaper here.
But no humidity over there.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
was gonna say I disagree. I hate the weather in Florida, but I like the politics in Florida.
Do we need to reverse the show? Plausible Foolishness.
No.
Yeah.
I'm right.
So you back in Idaho.
So yeah, got back to Idaho. I was dealing with a lot of issues from my deployment. You can't go through that kind of stuff without it affecting you psychologically and emotionally and physically.
Yeah.
I got connected with the VA. The Boise VA is a great VA actually. But when I first got out and got plugged into the VA, there's a lot of medications that I was on, and I ballooned. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm like a pretty thin person.
Yeah.
I probably weigh $170, $175, and I got up to.
That's huge, bro.
I was pushing 230. I was pushing 235, 240.
Woo! All right, big dog.
And it was from medications.
Jeez.
From the side effects of medications I was on. And so one day I was laying on the couch and I thought to myself, wait a second, this is just not dying. And so I went cold turkey off my meds. That's not what your doctors will tell you to do.
Sure.
But, and for a long time I self-medicated. There's all sorts of ways to self-medicate. I tell you what, some people do it with food.
Yeah.
But all those things, God was faithful to me. That's the crazy part,
Yep.
There's a scripture verse, and I can't remember it off the top of my head right now. Might be in Isaiah, or maybe in Psalm. It's in Psalms. It's one of David's writings. And it talks about, and I'm actually going to pull it up right now since I know we have an hour, right? I'm just going to
Go for it.
Preach. We love the word here, man.
Yep, the
Preach.
Bible's always welcome. And we'll wait for it, too.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
here we go.
It's partly the
so
inspiration
it's
for the name of the show, too.
Yeah,
Sorry.
sure. That's true.
Oh, okay. So the scripture is Psalm 51, 14 and 15. Deliver me from the guilt of bloodshed, O God, the God of my salvation, and my tongue shall sing aloud of your righteousness. O Lord, open my lips, and my mouth shall show forth your praise. So I went through a period of time in my life when at first I went to, I'm an agnostic, because I couldn't process what I was going through and how that in any way, shape, or form could be in a plan that God had. And I was wrong. Crazy how often that happens, right?
Yeah. You're a human?
What?
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, right. But I had a hard time professing at all. And then I went for probably 2 years where I knew it, and I knew what was going on, but I couldn't verbalize it. And I had a situation happen where a friend of mine essentially knew I was a believer, but I never would say it with my mouth. I couldn't. It was my mouth was closed, and something happened. He confronted me about it, and I professed.
Amen.
Like, Jesus is real. Jesus, he guides my path. I am nothing unless he says so.
Amen.
And even then, I'm just his instrument. It's the mindset that we need to figure out very quick.
Yep.
And if we have, people haven't figured it out, we fight not against kings of this world, but against principalities and powers.
Yep. How real is that verse nowadays in 2020?
Oh, dear Lord.
It's dude, yeah. So I got connected with some great organizations here in Idaho. I got connected with the Wyakin Foundation, which works with veterans transitioning through the education process. Got connected with Mission 43, which is an organization that works with veterans who are transitioning back, same thing, and dealing with other issues. And got connected with, there seems like there's so many. Staff Sergeant Aaron Butler Memorial Run, a good buddy of mine, Dan Nelson, connected with him. So, all these dominoes just started falling into place, but none of them had happened until until I opened my mouth
Amen.
and surrendered. And as soon as I surrendered, God was like, okay, now I can use you.
Yep.
Yep. And so doors started swinging open like crazy. And I'd always been told, if a door opens, you walk towards it until it closes. And so, got connected to so many great people in the Treasure Valley and in Idaho and across the country. Really ended up advocating with a guy named Dan McKnight, who founded Bring Our Troops Home .us. It's a great organization. It's an approach to foreign policy, and the best part about it is it's all veterans based. So
Nice.
other people can support it. Anybody can support it, but just understand that it wasn't started by some hippie, end all wars.
Yeah.
It was started by the war fighters.
Yeah.
And I know we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but
Heck yeah.
So I started getting a little bit interested in at least this specific topic because it was connected to me and my time in service. And I felt like I had a responsibility to speak up and say, hey, we need to change what we're doing. And then almost last year, March, a little before March, February maybe, I had a couple people approach me and say, hey, why don't you run for state legislature? And I said, well, there's a guy in that seat. And I really don't want to run against an incumbent. I don't want to have to deal with some guy trying to protect his seat.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard they're possessive.
Politicians? No way.
No, never.
What?
So I didn't want to do that. And then that next week, one of the representatives from my district retired. And I called up the same guy and said, hey, he just decided he's not running for re-election. He was like, well, Providence. How about that? Now you don't have
I love it.
So I prayed about it a lot.
Smart man.
I was afraid. True story. That's the way I would use to describe it. Afraid.
That would be
I think anytime that there's something big coming. Also, I came back to Idaho because I wanted to be left alone, and I knew this is a place where you alone. Apparently that wasn't.
I had that in the plans for you.
No, I guess not. But I did appreciate the time that I had. I'll give them that.
Nice. Hey, and now you're on the fastest growing conservative podcast on twitch.tv/plausible foolishness.
You're everywhere, man. You're everywhere now.
You're with the two kings.
There you go. Hey, well, I'm glad to hear. Like I said, you guys are great. So yeah, I ran on a very different platform than the average politician, I guess, runs on. The average one goes, well, we'll work on the, shorter traffic, check,
Yeah.
You're like, let's talk about the real issues of government.
Mm.
The real issues of government aren't how we're going to, get some road or new traffic pattern figured out. That's bureaucracy that does that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
What is the real crux of politics? And so I ran on a platform of individual liberty, self-ownership, self-responsibility, limited government, limited taxes, and I ran on the whole kit and caboodle. Yeah.
Those are curse words now in 2020. What are you doing? What are you doing?
Wait. You
I
won
won.
with a 70% win.
What?
Yeah, over a libertarian, I might add. 78% of the vote.
Wow. So you actually ran on actual libertarian principles and be a libertarian. Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, look, I live in a very conservative district.
Yeah.
We have way more churches than bars in this town. This Nampa is a hub for nonprofits and missions organizations and just fantastic people that want to help other people.
Nice.
What's that?
But our founders say what?
He says, "What's that like?"
Oh, it's fantastic. I don't think people understand this. This town is a fantastic town. But those organizations and those kinds of things are very normal here, and traditionally in America, most of those a lot of those nonprofits, and especially here in Idaho, are religious based.
Mm-hmm.
Right, they're Christian organizations, Missionary Aviation International, or there's tons of different organizations.
Yeah.
And I probably screwed up their name, so there's a bunch of them out here though.
So
but
just give us your address so we can put that down so they can hunt you down.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, no, those organizations that were so great, and but the general population here has an understanding that our rights come from God, not from man.
Amen.
It's one of the reasons why Idaho is still a red state, because we understand that the state can do nothing unless the highest power in the universe decides.
Amen.
So, we believe that, and I ran as a voice for those kind of principles, for the principles that taxes, it shouldn't be let's lift the tax on these people and we'll raise the tax on these people.
Yep.
You're just passing the buck. Cut the government.
Yep.
Cut the government. And then you can cut taxes because you have less to pay for. It's a very different approach.
Wins.
Yeah, right. Except for the lobbyists.
We don't care about those
How
people.
are they going to make money, Ben?
Maybe they
They'll
can get
find a
real
way.
jobs.
They'll find a way.
This is the way.
Oh man. Yeah. So, I ran. I went to so many small little prayer groups during that time where they were just praying. They felt like that I was the person that had been chosen for this time, for such a time as this.
Amen.
And I can tell you, I'm now officially sworn in as a state representative in the state of Idaho.
Congratulations.
But there's a part of me that's still, thank you. There's still a part of me that is like, this is a necessary evil.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And we can't forget that.
Yep.
Because I don't like the taste.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
That really is a good thing.
Like I said, I think the best politicians are the ones that don't want to be, right? I mean, I was on the Trump train very early on, and for the fact that he just didn't. Why would you give that up to be a politician? And especially in your case, you wanted to be completely left alone. Now you're hitting the campaign trail, meeting with human beings, asking for other human beings' votes to really clean up what's going on wherever you are. They're in Idaho, and the reality of the situation is you're probably the best fit for that situation because you don't want to be in it. And I totally believe that principle 1,000%. I think our best elected officials are the ones that don't want to be a part of it. Especially early on when America was founded. I mean, it was thought if you were going to be a representative or a senator, you do a couple terms and you're out. You leave. You're just doing it to protect the Constitution, protect the Union, and the reality.
Serve your community.
Serve your community, and pass it off to the next guy. And,
It was like jury duty.
Yeah, right.
It's not something you want to do. It's something that you have to do.
Yep.
And then once you're done, you get out of there.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But congratulations
And,
on being sworn in, man.
Thank you. Well, and what's ironic is my wife actually gave birth to our second child, a little girl, like
Nice.
2 weeks before election night.
Nice.
So I got to
Congratulations.
all election night. I'm sitting here holding a little baby, like,
Yes.
dude, this is awesome. This is the best way to bring it in right here.
Yeah.
There you go.
Heck yeah.
That's great.
So day one, what is day one going to look like for you, man? What are you excited for day one? I mean, obviously you're nervous. It's a crazy situation, but what are you looking forward to the most?
Yeah, so day one in the legislature is January 11th, and I think there's going to be a lot of buzz. We've had our own concerns, the House has, with the way that, let's be honest, okay? America's not supposed to be freaking shut down.
No,
No.
not even close.
Businesses aren't supposed to be restricted. Individuals aren't supposed to be restricted. I don't care if
Especially by
there's
the
a
government.
pandemic or not.
Yep.
Well, who else is going to do it?
No one. That's just the point.
Yeah.
If we're free individuals, we're free individuals.
Yep.
And we have to make our own choices. We have to understand that the state cannot guarantee our safety now or before COVID-19. That's not their job. That's not the proper role of government. It's not.
Yeah.
And the minute that we start believing that it is, well, if they're in charge of keeping us healthy, well, now you're right up New York's alley. Well, don't get it. You can't have a Coke over 24 ounces because it's bad for you. Or, and that's just one example, but it gets scarier because then it goes to, oh, well, because, if you don't choose to eat the way we say or put the things that we say into your body other than, what we say, then we're going to withhold X, Y, and Z. And that's what it always ends up being, right?
Yep.
Because
Every
then the
time.
state is in control of your health. And then if they're in control of your health, they're in control of your body. I think it's ironic that the same demographic that is coming out saying, my body, my choice, are the ones that want the state to have full ride over your body and what goes into it.
Well, of course.
Mind-blowing.
Well, that's because, that part of the political party has zero principles or comprehension of, what the Constitution says or whatnot. But I totally agree with you, my friend.
You got to have principles as the baseline of your laws, and truth doesn't. Here's the thing. Here's the good news. Truth always wins.
Amen.
You can preach a false ideology, but it falls on its face when it runs into the truth.
Amen.
Sure words were never spoken.
I like this guy. Can we get him on the show again? I like this guy already.
Talk to him. I mean, if he wants to come back,
dude.
we're more than welcome to come bring him back.
Yeah, I'm always down for a good time.
Amen.
All right.
Amen. So, here's my question. Sorry, I gotta jump in. I love this stuff, man. I'm sorry, man. Dusty, okay?
What?
I love you, bro.
Ray.
Anyway, so I fight with Dusty on the show all the time, man. It's part of the gig, man. But
It is.
You're good.
so you're
Oh, you weren't informed, but yeah,
Oh,
it's in your contract
guys,
that you didn't sign.
really got to let me know on these stuff.
so we're talking a little bit about it before the show, but I lived in Southern California for a little bit for 2.5 years in LA, and I try to explain to Floridians the West Coast, and conversely, when I lived in Los Angeles, I would lament every single day. That was my personal time of lamentation. I would complain like, "Wow, California's not Florida," and like they would give me a look of like bewilderment, like, "But this is California. This is the pinnacle of society. This is the pinnacle of intellectual thought and creativity. And why would you want to live anywhere else other than Los Angeles?" And I would literally look at them every day, and I'm like, In-N-Out Burger's not worth it. Okay, like it's just not. In-N-Out Burger's delicious, but it's not. I would much rather live in Florida as a free man and live in freedom. Because my background is I grew up in Ohio, which is a very purple state. Getting more. It's kind of it battles. It fluctuates between blue and red all the time. But I grew up as a blue dog Democrat. I thought that I was blue collar Democrat, so on and so forth. I moved to Florida thinking I was a Democrat. Then I moved to California and realized quickly I am not a Democrat whatsoever because these people are insane. Like literally, the closer I got to the hub of it, it was insane. But
How
you know,
dare you?
gosh, did I do that right? Yes. Okay, good. But for me, I try to describe to the West Coast to people. I'm like, listen, like when you go to these places up in the Northwest, and you see all this beauty and mountains and freedom and space.
So beautiful.
It blows your mind, especially like, in California, there's some beautiful places in California, you know what I mean? But then you've got San Francisco, you've got LA, you've got Portland, you've got Seattle, you've got these places that are literally praying, they're putting up statues, I think in Seattle, of Lenin, you know what I mean? They're praying for this communist revolution.
Isn't there a Baphomet statue somewhere up there too?
Probably, but like you're really on the front line of that because you've got to deal with that. You're right next to that madness. So how do you? Obviously, people are moving to Idaho. They're exiting these crazy places. Do you see a flux of people bringing bad ideologies to Idaho? Are you worried about that happening, or what have you seen being in your part of the country?
Yeah, well, I wish I could tell you that it was coming.
Okay.
But it's already here. And it's, unfortunately, some of it's even in our state government. So it's not, then that's, I think I mentioned this before the show too, but the majority of people we have coming into Idaho now aren't the, the hardcore Democrats. We're getting the refugees, the political refugees from California and Oregon and Washington, who feel like their state is beyond help. A perfect example, and it's this way with almost any state, but especially in places like Oregon and Washington, where you've got, let's say in Washington, you've got Seattle, you've got Tacoma, which is right next to it, and then you go over and you've got like Pullman, Washington, which is where Washington State is. Everything between those 2 points, they're on opposite sides of the state. Everything between those 2 points is red.
Yeah.
But because of those population centers, they don't feel like they have representation. And so they're trying, they're moving to a place where they feel like that can be salvaged. I like a lot of Idahoans have been disappointed in what some of the local jurisdictions and the health districts have decided to push down. I'm not a mandate guy. First of all, the Constitution states that the legislative body makes laws, and everybody else can go pound sand.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that I'm not interested in a top-down governmental structure. That's not what we have here. We are a bottom-up governmental structure, and we're going to have to show that again. Not just in Idaho, but in places like even in Florida still. The fight's not over.
Oh yeah, it's not even close.
And so, we have to continue to push back. It is difficult. I'm a conservative. I've generally been a conservative for most of my life, social conservative for sure. There are some social issues that I think are blown out of proportion.
Sure.
And used anytime you take an issue and you turn it into a weapon, you're gonna have problems. So, but
That's a good way to put
in
it.
general, So in general, this session, day one, we're gonna be as a body looking to rein in our governor's actions that he's taken over the last 9 months and make sure that he can't do it again.
Amen.
Unfortunately, part of that includes a constitutional amendment, which has to be on a ballot. So it wouldn't be on the ballot until 2022, which means we have to figure out something between now and then.
Yeah.
And making sure that these health districts and these localities, these city councils aren't dropping $1,000 fines because you don't put a diaper on your face.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yep. Was it Idaho that the lady got arrested for playing on the playground with her kids during Rona?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and here's the thing: a lot of people pushed back on that and said, "Oh, well, she should have been listening, or she should have been paying attention, or she was doing it for publicity." I don't care what she was doing it for. I don't care why it happened. Last time I checked, that playground is owned by the city, and the city owes monies from the citizens that live there. So if you're going to deny people access to their own stuff, it better be a better justification than because there's a virus that has a 99.96% survival rate.
Yeah. You'd think that anyways. You'd think that.
It's minute. It's minute.
Insane, man. Insane. Here's my fear, and along those lines with Rona, is I think that there is becoming a backlash to the Rona-ness. We're seeing it in Florida in the sense that our governor is, literally just telling people, like, if they give you a fine, wipe it with your behind, because we're not doing that. We're not going to fine people for whatever. My fear is this, just, because we live in Florida. I just went to Disney Springs last night, and I did a little retail therapy, which is crazy. I made the rare appearance out there in the Rona times. But my fear is that the government got whipped into this madness, and now corporate America really is pushing this more than anything else. The government may be saying, hey, listen, why are we wearing diapers on our face? Why are we doing everything antithetical to what we've known about virology for years now? Because the media told us to be scared and Orange Man bad. What do we do about corporations that are literally enforcing this madness, pretending that we're all going to die when math, reality, and science have told us otherwise? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, it does. And it's a big question because my perspective on it, I see corporations incentivized by government to capitulate for funds.
Yep.
And if the capitulate for funds, which we'll call it COVID-19 relief dollars.
Yeah.
But that's the initial capitulation, and if that doesn't work, then they threaten you with closures or fines or revoking your business license. And these are, those business license concepts usually trickle down to the small businesses, not so much the corporations.
100%.
The big corporations, they're like, yeah, give us the money, we'll do whatever you say.
Yeah.
Because for them it's the bottom dollar. But for that private business owner who owns a flower shop, in downtown, look, he just wants people to still come into a store and buy flowers. And obviously I'm using that as one random example, but look, we used to live in a country where, the business itself, the market set the demand, where the state couldn't restrict the market or de-incentivize demand, and that's what we're in now, where especially small businesses are getting wiped out across the country. What comes, and I'm just going to ask you this, what comes, so I believe that we are still at war with global communism.
1,000%.
They are using a lot of different methods. They're not using
2030.
traditional warfare anymore.
Yeah.
And so everybody needs to wake up. It is real. It is happening. If they kill your small businesses, if they stretch your small businesses long enough, let's say they get down to maybe 20% small businesses of what was before. It's 20% of what it used to be.
Yeah.
What happens to that void, that gap of demand? Because the demand is still there in the market, right? We're just all shut up.
The global conglomerates step in.
those-
Yep.
That's right. Those corporations and everything, they step in and they say, hey, we'll provide you the demand. Just buy everything off of Amazon.
Yep.
Just get all of your groceries from our big block store.
Yep.
You know, you don't need those mom and pop shops. You don't need those, small business, meat producers, or on and on and on. And then we have a more state-controlled distribution of our produce and our food. All those products, they're more regulated than they ever were, because they're primarily controlled by large corporations, which are heavily invested in. Yeah.
And then those corporations will also lobby the government to increase regulations on themselves, which they can afford.
To push the little guy out.
But little guys, and competitors, new competitors, will not be able to handle.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And so it is a time to fight back. If you believe in property ownership, it is a good time to look at what businesses are local in your area. And I don't know, I mean, it's different for a lot. It makes it difficult because it's, at least in Idaho, it's sometimes county by county, or even city by city, the different rules that are put on these businesses.
Yep.
Some capitulate, some don't. I rarely go out anymore, ironically, to stores, because in Canyon County, I'll go out to stores because I know that I can walk into a store and they aren't going to enforce anything.
100%.
But if I go to Ada County, for instance, the mayor over there has pushed out her royal decree that everyone must wear a mask, and everyone, and here's the thing. Look, I know people get all up in a tizzy over, oh, well, it's just a piece of cloth, just put it on, blah, blah, blah. Look, I don't care if you put it over your face. That's your problem.
100%.
And I call it a problem for a couple reasons, but you do what you want to do.
Yep.
Okay.
You mean like you're free to act as a free person decides?
What?
Whoa.
Yeah, but it has to apply to both parties.
Yes.
So, for instance, and this is when you realize that when I realized that it was about capitulation, compliance, rather than for your safety. And even then, we understand that the state cannot guarantee anyone's safety.
Yep.
We live in a very dangerous world, and we always have. Our ancestors would literally be so ashamed right now that
100%.
we're so afraid of some mystery virus that we gave up so much.
Yeah, but the media told us
and
to,
it's
and
hard to
Orange
get
Man
that.
bad.
Yeah.
But the media told us to. We're supposed to be afraid.
Well, this is when I realized that it was sketch. I walked into a restaurant. I'm not wearing a mask. There's clean, fresh mountain air.
Yep.
I walked up to a restaurant. I go inside. They say, you have to put on a mask so we can walk you to your table. So I put on a mask, and I walked 10 feet and sat down and took off my mask. And I said, wait a second. I studied chemical and biological agents, how to defend against them. And I can tell you right now that me putting on a mask between the door and the table doesn't stop anything. It doesn't change a darn thing. The only thing it changed was it took my choice away.
Yeah, but you forgot
That's what
the
it
part
did.
where you're studying where the chemicals are at the 6 foot level. So once you sit down, the Rona just stays up here, right? It just stays. I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding, man.
I don't even know, man. Some of these explanations and justifications for these, we'll call them categories of, what is and isn't effective mask wearing.
Sure.
All I gotta say is if it escaped from a level 4 bio lab,
Yeah.
then how do you think that your little diaper is going to fix it?
It's not. It's not.
I
It's not.
It's
I
not.
mean, when you look into the science, like the most compliant people with Rona are like 85% more likely to get Rona, which is hilarious to me. You know, the Danish study comes out and literally says this is bollocks, but they had to recant it because it doesn't go with the narrative. And I think a lot of people are waking up to that. I mean, for me, I'll be honest with you, I'm similar to you when this whole thing started. I am a, how do I say this nicely? I'm a defiant guy. I wrote a book called Defiant by Definition, so that's probably in my nature to say, you know, pardon my French, but piss off to people that tell me that stuff. And I get in fights with my wife about it, and it's hilarious because she's with me. She does not believe any of this Rona bullcrap. But when we go out, I always make a big stink about it. I walk through things without masks on purpose. You know, just to, you know, kind of assert whatever. Now, I can get away with it. I happen to be brown. I happen to be, you know, 6'4", 400 and fatty. So I can get away with things, and I just call them racist if they try to do anything to me. Just kidding. I don't do that. I'm totally playing. But, like, to me, you know, I'll be real with you. I'm not compliant with it because no one's been able to adequately explain to me how in the world, one, I'm spreading a disease that 99.9% people will survive anyways, is effective. And then on top of that, it doesn't make sense to me that God made my respiratory system to expend waste. And why would I capture that waste in a diaper and breathe it in continuously for wherever I'm at? And that's going to make me healthier, because I believe how the lungs work is you breathe in oxygen and you release the crap that's inside of you. So I haven't been able to understand that one. Maybe my science is just completely messed up. You know what I mean?
No, you're not. That is how it works.
Yeah.
So it you know, to be fair, look, there are people that to be fair, there are people that are more high risk to getting it,
Sure.
and more high risk complications.
Sure.
That being said, even if even if 50% of the population was going to get COVID and have serious complications from it, is that worth taking away changing our entire society and our societal structure and how we act and how we move and how we go about doing anything? I say no. You know, there used to be a time when we would say things like, we have to protect this American way of life. Well, what the heck is that? Because
we don't know then.
Well, the American way of life is the enemy now.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, look at things like critical race theory and, you know, the rise of democratic socialism, whatever that is.
Socialism.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't that just communism?
I'll tell you what
Socialism.
democratic socialism. It's the vessel of tyrants. So
Yes.
this is a little history lesson for you. So when I was growing up in Eastern Europe, I had the privilege of going around and seeing all these different sites, including Auschwitz. I went there 3 times before I was 12, and so I had a very keen interest in tyrants and what causes, essentially, I was able to see what happens when government has too much power mixed with something else, maybe a little bit of crazy or something. I don't know. And you know, it's interesting. I watched a documentary. I believe it's on Amazon Prime. I don't know why it's there. They'll probably take it down once they hear this.
Oh, yeah.
But it was a documentary that was released in the 60s with actual survivors of different death camps, observers from all these different atrocities throughout the Holocaust and World War II. And the person who actually stood out to me the most as one of the witnesses talking about it and reflecting on it, he was a German citizen. He wasn't a Jew. He wasn't a soldier. He was a German citizen. He was a regular guy. And he said, you know, we didn't realize that most of our citizens didn't realize what we were doing to the Jews. It was very quiet. We didn't talk about it.
Yep.
What we knew that we had the capitalists that were our enemies to the west, and we had the communists to the north, or to the east, which was the Russians. And we had to preserve democratic socialism.
Mm-hmm.
It came out of his mouth in this documentary, a German citizen. That's what they promoted.
Unreal.
Democratic socialism is elected tyrant.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the way that our system has moved away from a constitutional approach to Congress passes laws, and then, it goes through this process, and the executive is just the check. He's just a stopgap to make sure that something bad doesn't get through. We don't live in that anymore. We live in a King George society where the king can declare, we must go to war with Iran.
Yep.
We must do this. We must do that.
Which is coming, by the way. Which is coming, and I'm glad that you said that, by the way.
So, I will be honest with you. If Joe Biden is elected to be president of the United States,
mm-hmm.
then you are right.
Yeah.
Do not anticipate anything less than a large military uptick.
Yep.
There's nothing better than starting a new war. I actually said this. I said, if Donald Trump would have invaded Iran, he would have been elected, because all of the big money corporations that love that war industry would have gotten right behind him
100%.
instead of undermining him.
Yep.
But he did the right thing.
Wait, Orange Man did the right thing?
What? He kept the peace?
What? Orange Man?
He didn't start the war? I thought he was...
This guy's clearly a Nazi.
Clearly a Nazi.
Oh, why we're even talking to him.
Yeah,
That's
right?
crazy.
So, I'm going to actually read something to you guys, because I got an email from a reporter from The Hill, which is a Washington, D.C. based newspaper.
Yep.
And they asked me 3 questions, and I usually don't respond to those kind of surveys, but I was feeling generous. So, that they asked about, the priority for the session, and for my priority for what bill I wanted to run, what bills I wanted to push, and that was all, filler. And then the next question was, do you believe Joe Biden won the 2020 presidential election? Now, I'm a state legislator. I'm 31 years old. I've done 2 combat tours to Afghanistan in the United States Marine Corps. I love this country. I'm a history fanatic, not just of what happened, but why it happened, because that's where the real history is.
You're talking about language.
And, yeah.
So what you're saying is you're a conspiracy theorist. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, here's the thing. Conspiracy, the word conspiracy is actually Latin. I believe it's Latin, and it comes from conspiritas, which means what is unseen. It's crazy. But I would stop short of saying I'm what is painted as a conspiracy theorist. Sure. I just see what I see, and I don't discount it because, some nice guy with a suit told me that that's not what happened on TV.
Nice guy.
These are not the droids you're looking for. Gotcha.
So this was my response. The people's faith in our electoral process is shaken, and refusals by the courts to hear cases outlining voter fraud only reaffirms our distrust in the system to allow for the will of the people to be observed and respected.
Amen. The
blatant censorship executed by social media giants during the election and the absolute disrespect and mischaracterizations about the president over the last 4 years only strengthens our resolve to stand with the President of the United States, saying, we do not concede.
Yep.
Did you see? I don't know if you probably can't hear that, but Dusty is he just played the Final Fantasy VII victory song
music.
from for that. Anyway, did you see Alan West tweeted? I think it was a tweet. Either way, he's the GOP chairman in Texas, and he was mentioning that perhaps we need a union of states that are
That actually follows
willing.
the Constitution.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, weird.
Your thoughts?
He's still an elected official.
Yeah.
You don't want to
No,
talk about
hey,
secession.
you know what? Look, I haven't said anything treasonous yet, so. Okay.
True that.
And you know what? Here's the thing: our founding fathers were treasonous right up until they were our founding fathers. So let's not forget.
1,000%. 1,000%.
Oh yeah.
Great question. I'm actually going to read the second part of that questionnaire because you nailed it. Their question was, we've seen some legislators calling for more drastic steps like secession or Congress overturning certified election results. Do you think either of those steps are viable or justified? My response is as follows. I encourage members of Congress who value integrity in elections and who desire to see the Union preserved, because that is what is at stake.
Yep.
And we should not pretend that that's not the stakes that we're playing on.
Yep.
I urge them to keep fighting for the American people. We are rapidly reaching the point of no return, where trust in our elected officials and government will have been eroded beyond repair.
Yep.
Whether from 20 years of undeclared wars to the force feeding of federal health care and social justice ideology, and now to the disregarding of our Constitution, free people in this country have much reason to consider alternative options going forward.
Yep.
This is the way.
We have to keep all the pieces on the board.
Yep.
At this point, it's interesting because the call is, oh, well, let's all come back together. Let's all compromise.
Yeah. Which is
the Constitution?
well, no. What that means is the fight is over. You lost. Submit to our way of thinking, and we'll let you back in.
Yeah.
No, they won't. They won't let us back in.
Well, of course not. Because we're not going to submit to their thinking.
If you say all hail to your ideology, and I'm just going to say this on here, and I do hope that this podcast goes a long ways and goes places that we didn't even anticipate. I hope it goes all over the place.
Appreciate it.
Race theory is poison.
Amen.
100%. We say that
Almost every
all
show.
the time.
Every show, brother. We're with you.
Okay, it's the truth. Race theory is poison. There is one race, the human race. We all have different ethnicities, and those ethnicities, for sure, have variables and differences.
Sure.
It's your background. It's where you're from.
It's culture.
It's culture, and culture is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Except when it's not.
Culture is beautiful when people are acknowledged. When I was growing up, this is interesting. When I was growing up, because most of my family, almost all my family spoke Ukrainian, and growing up, my dad had been a missionary. Yeah, right. My dad had been a missionary to Africa, and so he spoke Tigrinya. And so anytime we'd go to an African restaurant or we'd go to a Ukrainian restaurant when we were back in the States, we would speak to them in their own language, right? And that was seen as it was appreciation of their culture, an acknowledgement that we understood to a greater extent where they come from. And it was a beautiful thing. But in today's society in America, if I spoke fluent Mandarin and I walked into a Chinese restaurant and even if and granted, she might not speak Mandarin,
True.
We're ranging. But if I was to speak to someone in Mandarin in their own tongue, it would not be received well.
Mm.
It would be seen as, oh, you are stereotyping me. You think because I'm Asian that I must speak Mandarin.
Yep.
No. If you are Chinese and you are so far separated from the Mandarin language to where you don't even touch it, you're not Chinese. You're American.
Yep. What did
Okay?
you just say? America? I'm just like,
No, okay. Theodore Roosevelt,
Mhm.
who was not my favorite president,
no.
Yeah.
full disclosure, but he had a
Agreed.
couple things right. He said, there are no hyphen Americans.
Mm.
Amen.
There are no hyphen Americans. You are
Well, he
either
was a
an
Democrat,
American.
wasn't
He founded the Progressive Party.
Oh my goodness! A progressive said that. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Ben.
The Bull Moose Party, don't you remember?
Yep.
Yep.
But no, he said there are no hyphen Americans. You are either an American or you are not. It's time.
Yeah.
It's time for us to bring the same standard back. Look, as Americans, we want to be accepting of all people, and we are.
Mm-hmm. We're
We're the most accepted culture.
by
A mile.
yeah,
Yeah.
leaps and bounds.
So, yeah. So I mean, that's clearly what we want to be,
Mhm.
but you can't become unified by division.
Mm-mm.
You cannot add together, and yeah, it doesn't work. Okay, and what has been pushed through our schools and our social fabric at this point is, if you are a certain shade, then these are your characterizations. So what's the difference? I'm dead serious, because this has happened throughout history. This isn't something just for now.
Mm-hmm.
But back in the 30s and 40s, if you ever watch any of those films, they always portray blacks very poorly.
Yeah.
Like they
Rapist,
dance.
lazy guys. Yeah. That's.
Well, they come in. They, hello, Mr. Sir.
Yeah. Yep.
They have them stereotyped in a block.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between that and, oh, well, since you're a black man, you have a higher risk of being shot by the police? That's
1000%.
a lie.
Yeah.
That is a lie.
But to your point, it's the same thing. It's the same racism. It's just a different. It's a different flavor of racism.
Well, it's an even more insidious racism because it's a racism that pretends to be
woke.
The friend.
Yeah.
I'm your ally, and you should know that you are one of the most oppressed individuals in America.
Ben, I don't know if you saw Fauci's comments over the week, but African Americans, blacks in America, should take the virus and take the vaccine and trust it because a black lady made it. And here's the thing, and
that's just science.
Oh, but listen, and I'm not putting you on a spot because you're an elected official. I don't want to put you in that thing. So this is the foolishness part of the show, but the truth at the same time. As a black man in America, as an American, first to your point, the fact that that's not seen as racism is absolutely hilarious, and I point that out a lot. My TikTok and Twitter, I've made famous the term liberal logic, and I kind of make fun of liberals. Because it is amazing to me that I kind of make fun of liberals a little bit. That the reality of the situation, and this, dealing with these progressives, Democrats, socialists, which are really communists, they tend to project what they are. Their obsession with racism comes from the fact that they're actually racist. The racism of soft acceptation is really what's taken over. To your point, before it was just overtly. We're going to call black people lazy, rapists, crazy people, but now we're just going to say that you're soft as baby crap and you really need the white man to help you get where you need to be.
Because they don't think them capable.
No, 100%.
The same way they didn't back then.
Yeah.
Just now, it's from an
from
an empathic,
it's heartwarming.
you know,
It's heartwarming racism now.
caring for these people. I care about you enough to let you know that you're not capable of achieving anything in this country.
And to your point, Ben, this communist, and I just say communist. I don't even pretend that it's socialism anymore. I don't pretend. I mean, it's globalist. It's globalism and it's communism. Period. For me, and I'll just say it because I'm the conspiracy guy on the show. I'm the deep state.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. We just played an Alex Jones clip, so anytime I go off the rails, Dusty hits the Alex Jones button for me. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's like watching America now, and back to your point before, it is interesting, and I'm noticing, because I was worried about this for a long time. I was worried about, are people really buying this madness? Are people really buying the stupidity? And the most powerful, though, in my opinion, is not necessarily what you do in the ballot, but what you spend your money on or what you're willing to do, right? And to your point, what I was really worried about living here in Florida, growing up, I grew up in Ohio, I moved to Florida, then I moved to LA, realized that California is a dumpster fire wrapped in more dumpster fire. So I moved to Florida because I literally was willing, I literally quit being a Division I strength and conditioning coach to live in Florida because I did not want to be living in California anymore. And I told my wife, I joked around with her, I was like, listen, I'll be a garbage man in Florida rather than working at UCLA in California. You know, I would much rather live somewhere where I know I can be free, where I can have freedom, that I don't have to be in this rat race madness of California and be with these crazy, insane people and live in Florida. And what I've noticed with the migration, which is happening, because you're kind of alluding to it, there's a couple things kind of congealing at the same time. But I am noticing that the people that are moving from New York, I was worried living in Florida that people would move to New York or move to Florida from New York and bring Cuomo politics with them. And what we saw in the last election, especially here in Florida, was the opposite. People moving here to Florida, which we've had a huge influx of people moving here, it's become more red. And I'm noticing that the people that are moving away from these psychopathic places are bringing conservative values. And you alluded to it earlier that you're noticing the people moving to Idaho from California are like, yo, we're not being represented. At what point, I guess this is my question, because people are waking up to the madness, they're waking up to the communism, to the tyranny, to the craziness of the Californias, the Seattles, the Washingtons, the New Yorks of the world. At what point do we just sit around and be like, listen, at some point, the rest of you, there's a constitution that we have that our founding fathers fought, bled, and died for. You clearly are using it as toilet paper. Why in the world are you part of this union? Why are you part of the quote-unquote United States of America if you're going to enforce me to wear a face diaper, if you're going to tell black people that they're completely weak and can't do anything, and everyone is racist in America, which is the most unracist country of all time, you know, get a passport, right? At what point do states like yours, Idaho, that are right there on the front lines, the Texases, the Floridas, the Tennessees of the world say, okay, we're done with this madness, we're actually going to follow the Constitution? Because I'll be honest with you, I'm the conspiratorial guy. I have been, you know, it's been brought up on the show, and I was like, oh, there's not going to be a civil war. I don't think there's going to be a bullet civil war, but I feel like we've been in a Cold War already with these battle of ideologies, and people are voting with their money, moving to these different places. At what point do we say, yeah, we're just not in the same place? We need an amicable divorce. Does that question make sense? I just rambled in Alex Jones for a long time, but does that question make sense?
No, it does. So James Madison talked a lot about it in the Federalist Papers, and how actually in Federalist Paper number 1, I want to say John Adams essentially talked through the scenario of if the bonds between the states erodes to a point of no return, then may we shake hands and step away. And a lot of people believe that the Civil War in the 1860s ended that discussion, and the Union will never try and do that again. He disagrees, but I tend to agree with Abraham Lincoln in the concept that, look, we want this Union to preserve. we are stronger when we are together.
Sure.
But you have to follow these rules. And that's one reason why I'm not convinced that Joe Biden will be the president for the next 4 years, is because I do believe in the Constitution of the United States. And I do believe that when states violate their own state constitutions to change election law, if that isn't addressed, then yes, we have forsaken the Constitution, and at that point, all gloves are off.
Yep.
So that is why I am very hopeful, and have encouraged members of Congress to stand up and do something on January 6th, because if they don't, then the Constitution will have been trampled, I believe, for the last time.
Yep.
And, you know, free people won't be slaves.
Yep. Yep.
And slaves are slaves.
Act like
in their
men
conscience.
determined to be free.
Yeah.
And,
So,
and,
you know,
Ben, to your point,
Yep.
I think that, honest to God, because, how do I say this nice? Well, it's plausible foolishness, so you'll have to forgive me if I use bad verbiage here. But
you're good.
conservatives have been pissed on this country for forever, and that goes back to, you know, and I don't want to throw Bush under the bus, and again, and I agree, I'm with you wholehearted. I respect what our troops did in Iraq and in Afghanistan. I don't agree with the move to be there in the first place. Like, my biggest beef was 2 of my friends never came back from Afghanistan, you know, and I looked around like, you know, one was Iraq, one was Afghanistan, so I don't want to throw that in the bus, but I've watched 4 globalist presidents in a row. I've watched Bush, Clinton, Bush, Obama march us as far away from the Constitution as humanly possible. And at some point, there's a breaking point where it's like, wait a minute, I never even entertained the idea of secession or walking away or shaking hands and saying, hey, man, it's been nice, California, but we can't do business anymore. It's been nice, New York, we appreciate you, but we can't do business anymore with you. That thought never came across my brain until the Supreme Court of the United States of America wouldn't even see a case where Georgia didn't even follow their own constitutional law. Pennsylvania did not follow their own constitutional law. And we have complete video evidence of this happening, and it's not even being heard by the Supreme Court of the United States, which is tragically sad, because at some point, DC's kind of forsaken us. I hate to say that, but DC's literally forsaken us. And I had to have that tough conversation with my wife. I was like, listen, I know where Florida's going to go on this. I know where Texas is going to go on this. I know where, you know, people, Idaho, South Dakota, you're right next to South Dakota there. We're not too far from South Dakota. I know what they're going to about to do. You know what I mean? So do we become East Coast, West Coast, and everybody in between? I mean, what happens at that point? What do you think?
No, because all the coasts would starve.
It's true. Well, you know, it's funny, Ben. People keep saying, like, oh, you can't leave California, you can't leave New York. They're the money makers, and I'm like, time out. All of those states are in complete and total deficits. Like Texas,
Texas is a moneymaker.
Texas is a moneymaker. It's the 10th largest economy in the world. Florida's books are balanced. People are still going to want to come to Florida. And we've got all the states in between. We've got the Nebraskas and the Oklahomas and the, you know what I mean? So Indiana's the, you know, whatever.
People hate Miami.
Well, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, but Miami voted red, so I like Miami.
No,
so.
that's what I'm saying. Miami's a destination.
True.
You know, if you want to, people aren't going to have a problem putting their business headquarters in Miami.
I mean, my point is this. I mean, at what point do we say, yeah, I really don't care about trans issues. Sorry, California. At what point do we say, yeah, Cuomo, I'm sorry, I really don't want to, you know, I don't want to completely destroy small business just because you're afraid of the Rona? Like, at what point do we say, hey, Pennsylvania, not a single one of your elections have ever been legit in your history for the last, you know, whatever. Why in the world would we allow you to sit in our Senate, sit in our House of Representatives, and allow you to participate in federal elections if you can't do things above board? Georgia, why would we ever let you do this? Why would we let Michigan do that? Why would we let Wisconsin do this stuff and still say that you're part of the United States of America? That's laughable. You've literally pissed on the Constitution. You've come in my home. You've kicked my wife in the face and shot my dog, and I'm supposed to sit around and be like, let's unite. This is great. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, the amicus brief that I signed on to in support of the state of Texas and their lawsuit outlines how it does affect these other states.
Yeah.
Because not only is it coincidental with this election cycle, those 5 states just so happen to be the ones with all the irregularities and all of these different things, but
Yep.
all of that quote-unquote conspiracy aside, which it's not. There's lots of evidence and lots of eyewitnesses, testimonies that have sworn affidavits. We've seen this.
And video.
Yes.
Video.
This is unprecedented. Well, it's unprecedented. Never before has there been so much just outpouring of look what we're doing. So the amicus brief that I signed lended the concept of, look, if these states don't follow their own constitution, then we're the only ones following the Constitution, and they negate all of our votes, which makes which is going to deter people from voting in the future if they feel like, oh, well, they don't need to rig the federal election. They only need to rig these democratic states.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. It's the way to get so the Democratic Party has been pushing to get rid of the Electoral College for a long time. Well, this is their way to get rid of it without getting rid of it. You just rig it.
Yep.
And I'm not here to completely rag on Democrats. I think there are some, Democrats that still have a soul and a conscience. But the party ideology has shifted far away from American principles.
Sure. That
it's hard to look at them and call them from the same creed as you are.
They're not. Well, I mean, the Communist Party of America is doing what the Communist Party of America would do. I mean, you live in Ukraine, so you're in the hotbed of dirty elections and dirty politics. I mean, so you're literally witnessing it in America, which we thought was impossible to do, right? We thought there's no way in America we would ever fall this far. But the reality of the situation is, and I don't want to be gloom and doom, but empires rise and fall, man. And there's a reason why.
This is what I would say, because I have to be optimistic.
I know you're an elected official. Sorry, I'm being the negative Nancy.
Well, no, not just because I'm an elected official. Okay, look, I love this country. Yeah. I grew up understanding what it meant to be an American in this world, where you owned yourself, where you were a free, sovereign citizen, and you walked the earth because you were free.
Yep.
That meant something, and it still means. And so, I have to be optimistic because, the left has been calling for a revolution now for 4 years, right? Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I'm one of millions of combat veterans who understand what the Constitution means, who fought overseas, so we could live here in peace. They don't know what a revolution is. Yeah. They don't know what that means. And we do.
Yep.
And it ain't gonna happen.
Yep.
We don't want a revolution. I've said for a while now, I want a renaissance, not a revolution.
Yeah.
We need a rebirth in this country of those Republican ideals, and they're Republican ideals not because of the Republican Party. Okay, Jefferson said parties are just avenues to get where you want to go. They're not the say all be all.
Yep.
The Republic, the ideals of the Republic, is what makes this country great.
Yep.
And there was a time too, and this is always chapped my khakis, because we all grew up in this era where they said, oh, well, you have to continue to separate church and state. They have to be separate in every single way, and they cannot intertwine in any way. That is impossible.
Yep.
And if you look at our founding fathers, if you look at Jefferson and John Adams and George Washington and John Quincy Adams and James Madison, and all of them virtually understood that the precepts and the principles that drove our country to revolution were based in a spiritual understanding. So prior to the Revolutionary War in the 1600s, see, I got to jump into a little history lesson here because it gets me excited.
Hey,
I love it.
Listen, if it chapped your khakis, I want you to go that way. You know what I mean? I like it.
Okay, sweet, thanks.
I love that.
So
I
in
love
the
it.
1600s, you had Thomas Hobbes in England. He was a philosopher, and he argued for the king against the people. They wanted to elect a representative form of government so they could create, an appeals process of grievances against the government and the king. And he wrote the Leviathan, and it was this tale that essentially painted the world as violent and hostile, and the strongest survives. And some of that is true.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it doesn't really factor in any Christian ideals. And at the time, it was it was pretty much you were going to get burned at the stake if you said you weren't a believer. But in his personal writings, it did come out that he was an atheist, which would explain why he argued that your rights are given by the king because God anointed the king, and so you must listen to the king. Well, John Locke was a philosopher right after him, and he came in and argued against that. And he said, well, wait a second. If God ordained the king, and so we must listen to the king, then why, when the king tells you to do something, do you have to make a choice? It should be impulsive then. But it's not. The king says to go here, and I have to choose whether I do that or not. So by definition, God gives the individual choice.
Yep.
Not the king.
Amen.
He made the statement, every man has a right to a property in and of himself, and no man has a right to that property except for himself. Those ideals sparked a Reformation in England that allowed for the king to essentially be moved out of a purely authoritarian state and into an era of representation under the king. Now, our founding fathers took it one step further.
I think they took it a few more steps further.
Yeah, well, we did. But essentially, we were not getting heard in that form of government. And so our founding fathers said, well, we're going to make our own form of government that is purely a republic, not under some king or queen, but from the bottom up, representative government. And it changed the game in the world. That was there's a reason why the world looks still at America. They don't want the light to go out.
No,
they don't. There's a reason why the people in Hong Kong protesting the tyranny of the Chinese Communist Party are waving our flag and singing our national anthem in protest. That blows me away every time I think about it. Like, we don't deserve what we have because we don't appreciate it.
But is this the tipping point that makes that happen? To your point, Ben, because I literally can tell you 1,000%. I would have never, and I had this conversation with multiple people. Okay. I would have never thought of ever saying, taking John Adams literally and saying, hey, let's shake hands and, you've got to do you and we've got to do us. But literally, I mean, watching a Supreme Court deny hearing the grievances of the people with clear constitutional violations, we don't have a constitution anymore. You know what I mean? If we don't even respect the piece of paper, we don't live in the United States of America. We live in the banana republic that happens to be in America. And and I hate to be that guy. I don't want to be a pessimistic guy. I am a positive guy. God is in control. God is sovereign. He is doing this for a reason. But to me, everybody's like, don't give up on hope. Don't give up on hope. And I'm sitting there looking around like, hope's irrelevant if your Supreme Court is against you, if your leadership is not fighting for you. And I agree with you. I think I think that the change starts from the bottom up. Guys like you that want nothing to do with politics, literally getting into politics to change things from the ground up. And I think we've seen that in Florida. I think we've seen that. We saw that 2 years ago when the show started. With our election with Ron DeSantis, that was a huge pivotal moment for Florida, where we kind of, I don't want to say that we exercised the demons of the Democratic Party, but we did a really good job of that and started moving that away from our state. And we've been getting more people flooding into the state that share those ideals. I agree with you 100%. I think this thing starts from the ground up, but what do you do? You know what I mean? What do citizens
this is
of America
important too, because you referenced the United States as an empire.
Mm-hmm.
We are an empire.
Yep.
That is a true statement. Anyone who studies history would look at the United States and say, well, the history of the world says that republics turn into empires and then they either implode or they restructure.
Yep.
Well, I don't want to implode.
I don't either.
So
I just want to restructure.
So I recommend a restructure. Look at the Roman Empire. They did it 3 or 4 times.
Yep.
Where they would expand and then they'd come down, and then they'd expand and then they'd come down. Well, look at us. We've expanded multiple times. We are now militarily, we're all over the world. It's insane.
Yeah.
Not without a single declaration of war from Congress. We have troops in over 100 countries around the world.
Yep.
It is a complete crapshoot.
Yep.
And this is a very slippery thing, but I could get crucified for this one. No pun intended. Talking about the Romans.
Yeah, right.
But if Julius Caesar was here today, he would say we need to restructure.
Yeah. Yep.
I think you're wrong.
Yeah. So what do we do? Do we love this republic enough to do the hard work that's necessary? And I don't mean going out and telling your friends. I mean showing up, being loud,
Yep.
being that no longer silent majority.
Yeah.
We can't afford to be a silent majority anymore.
Yep.
We have to be the voice.
Yep.
We have to be the voice of reason and of authority.
Yep.
And this isn't about making Trump our king.
Yeah.
No.
No. This isn't. It's not about that. But they'll want to paint it like that.
Sure.
No, they do
I don't
paint
care.
it like
Yeah,
Let
they
them
do.
paint.
True.
Yeah, let them paint. That's true.
Let them paint. Because, like I said at the beginning of the show, truth always prevails. Truth. You can't look. Yeah, and you could say that history is written by the victors, and I'd accept that answer as well.
Mm-hmm.
As long as we're the victors.
Well, I mean, the good book says we win in the end anyway, so I mean, I'm going to stick with that one.
That's
So.
right. That's right. So I know we had talked a little bit wanted to talk about Defend the Guard. It's a bill that I'm going to be pushing.
Yes.
I really wanted to touch on it. It actually was it was presented for the first time 5 years ago by a West Point graduate and House delegate in the state of West Virginia who had been observing these unconstitutional wars where Congress wasn't doing their job, but the troops were still getting, for lack of a better way to say it, hoard out to whatever country was going to pay top dollar for our presence. And at times, look, you can have a monetary incentive with a good cause.
Sure.
Right? There wasn't a single Marine that I went over there with that thought, oh, well, we're not here to do good things. We wanted to do good things. But here's the thing. The military isn't built to do good things.
Yeah.
The military isn't built, at least, it's not supposed to be built to be your best friend.
Yep.
No.
We're supposed to kill things.
And blow it up.
Until you keep killing them until your enemies are gone.
Yep.
There's a different mentality. And, I'm not a nation builder. I don't think that's the role of the military.
Nope.
So what this bill does, really is it prohibits the federal government from deploying the Idaho National Guard into foreign combat zones unless Congress does their job until they formally declare war as provided by the Constitution.
Nice.
5 years ago, there was only one state that was saying it. It was Pat McGeehan from West Virginia. And he said it, and he said it, and he said it. And he said it, and he said it, and he said it. Nobody listened. And then the Pentagon sent goons in and said, hey, we're gonna threaten you with cutting your National Guard funding if you pass this bill, which is heinous blackmail by the big boys. So screw that.
Yeah.
And last year, we heard about it, and it ran in 5 states, and it didn't pass in any of them, and they used the same strategy throughout all 5 states. Hey, we're going to pull funding if you pass this bill. Well, guess what? They can't pull funding from all of us.
Yep.
Right now, we're at 27 of the states. Hopefully, before the 2021 session is over, we'll have even more.
Mm-hmm.
It's time for Congress to reach between their legs and see what's there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love that.
Amen. Is Florida one of the 27 states?
This is not.
Yes.
Nice.
Okay, so if you go to defendtheguard.us, there is an interactive map where you can see that. And I don't know if it's completely updated yet because we have been having states jumping on board left and right in the last 3 weeks. Because
you
they
wonder why?
I can tell you why, because Joe Biden has gathered himself the Bush-Obama hybrid foreign policy team.
That's all we need. Yes. Sorry.
And that's, look, wars are not part of life. I hate this concept of people saying, well, war is just something that we live with. War, our founders understood that war was the end result of failed negotiations. It was not the easy button.
Yeah.
And that's what it's turned into. And they're trying to make that the norm. But war fighters understand that that is not the principle of war. You fight wars that are just. The Greeks had 3 justifications for war. And these were, and if you much of the Federalist Papers or the Founding Fathers' writings, they are plastered with Greek philosophy. Quotes from Plato and Socrates, because they understood there was a lot of wisdom to be gathered there. And that concept of war was there are 3 justifications for going to war. Either 1, you've been attacked. 2, you're about to be attacked, so the attack is imminent. And there's a 3rd one, and I should know it, but it's blanking me. But it's not for American interests.
Yeah.
I can tell you that. That is the most overused bull line that the media likes to promote. oh, well, they're just here for American interests. You mean lobbyists' interests. You
Yes.
mean that big money machine behind, because guess what? No soldier's wife is saying, oh, well, it's okay because he's there for America's interests.
Yeah. Yeah.
That ain't
Yep.
how it works.
Agreed.
You know, troops, we look, society, I think a lot of times looks at the troops as a collective.
Mm-hmm.
And to be fair, we look at ourselves as a collective to an extent.
Yep.
But these are your sons, these are your daughters.
Yeah.
And we love the country
Yep.
ferociously, which is why the place we are in. We'll do anything for this country.
So my question is this: so for all the Biden supporters, here's my question: for all the Biden supporters, the dead people that voted for him, the felons that voted for him, and Dominion software, how are they going to justify this Iran war that's going to magically pop up once that's going to be the first thing he does, and then passes off to to Vladimir Kamala Harris? How is that gonna? How are they going to sell that to the American people who watched Obama just bomb the crap out of people and everyone hated it? That's why Trump came in, and Bush, who just bombed the crap out of people and everyone hated that too. How do you sell that to the American people in whole? How do you sell that? That's my question.
Historically, the American people have to be coaxed into a war.
Yeah.
It can't. It's not something that we're just like. It's not like the Romans. We're not going there for conquest and glory.
Yeah.
We have to have a cause.
Yep.
So I can't really answer your question because I'm not in the DNC headquarters.
Yeah, true. So how do I say this? So is Joe just going to get all of our military away from a city, allow terrorists to attack it, and then we just jump back into it again? Is that how it's going to roll, or what? I'm just kidding. You don't have to answer that. You're an election official.
I have no information on that, but
sure.
What I can tell you is that Americans, if you haven't noticed in 2020, Americans unfortunately may be a little bit emotionally driven.
Yeah. Yep.
We have to be pragmatic.
Yep.
And what's going to keep us out of a war is pragmatic Americans that don't drink all the Kool-Aid.
Amen. And I love what you're talking about with defend the guard. Like, if we're literally forcing Congress to declare war like we used to have to do.
Like the Constitution.
Like the Constitution.
Like the Constitution calls for.
Like the Constitution says.
Yeah, weird. It's crazy that you have to make laws to defend the thing. Anyways, this would definitely be a monkey wrench into that problem that would stymie, Beijing Joe and Kamala Harris from throwing our sons and daughters into a war for whatever globalist thing that their lobbyist buddies want them to get into. So, what's the website again? It's what is it called? Defend the Guard.
It's called defendtheguard.us.
Awesome.
And here's what I would say too. Just as I mentioned that prior to 2001, America's number one enemy was global communism.
Mm-hmm.
That is still the case.
Amen.
At that time, China was small and weak, and we used the method of appeasement to attempt to get them to roll out of that communist government and into some form of democratic something, but that never happened. Somewhere between the multiple, 4x4x4x4x4 presidential terms, that never happened.
They have a long-term view. They were just biding their time.
And I think we can see that now, very clearly.
Clearly,
they have the largest, economy in the world. Also, historically, The reason why we went to war, a lot of people don't talk about this, but one of the main things about the war with Japan, after the end of World War I, we made a negotiation. I forget what the technical term is of it, but everyone was only allowed to have so many ships,
Yep.
right? Fleet sizes was very important. And
tonnage.
Japan was not allowed to have a larger fleet than the Americans in the Pacific, because the Americans had to cover the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans. Well, the Japanese, when they started to ramp up militarily, they said, well, screw that, we're going to boost our Navy. So they boosted their Navy, and then we cut their fuel, because at the time we were producing a ton of fuel and selling it to them. We cut their fuel line, which stalled them out in Manchuria, and so they bombed Pearl Harbor. And that's a short 10,000-foot view synopsis of what happened. Well, China has the largest navy in the world now. Economically, they are a monster. They not only manufacture, but on a tech side of things, not only are they extremely advanced, but they're authoritarian in their, in the execution of their technology. And so it's a lot heavier handed. They don't play games. The party, in China, the Chinese Communist Party must survive. That is the end goal, is that the party always wins. And if half of their population dies, but the party survives and is victorious, that's a victory for the glorious party. Okay? Because the party is where your rights come from, not from God. There's a fundamental difference in ideology. China is the biggest threat to the United States in the next 4 years. They're the biggest threat to the United States right now. Don't fall asleep, people.
Amen. Amen.
It's happening. Follow the money. Chinese, you got Chinese Communist Party agents sleeping with Democratic senators.
And driving them.
We did a
Don't
whole,
forget about
we did a whole
You
show
could
about
make
that
a
last
movie
week.
about this.
I know.
You could make a movie about this.
Didn't they call it the Manchurian Candidate?
Driving these
Yeah.
Chinese.
Yeah.
That is unacceptable. Listen, 40 years ago, he would be in a prison cell right now.
Yes.
Well, listen.
He would be a compromised individual in a prison cell.
Ben, that's not how it works. There's two classes in America: the political class and everybody else. So like you can get rid of 3,000 emails and bleach bit your servers and smash phones. That's okay. Sleep with Chinese spies, not a big deal. But then have the audacity to call Trump a Russian agent later. But listen, we live in a different world now. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't think we do. I think no. Listen, I don't think we do live in a different world. I think we, what's the word I'm looking for? When you have patience for it, what's the word I'm looking for?
Tolerance. We call that tolerance. We tolerate.
We tolerate it.
Yes.
We tolerate it.
Yes.
But we don't live in a world where it's okay.
Yes.
We tolerate it.
I agree.
And one of the big questions is if the Insurrection Act is going to be brought up before Congress.
Yes.
Look, I say do it. Look where we're at. We have the Chinese Communist Party buying land in the United States.
Yep. AMC properties are all owned by Chinese companies.
It's unreal, man.
That's the only
Look,
reason
and
why
they
they're
don't
not
believe.
bankrupt.
Just understand, the Chinese Communist Party does not believe in private property rights.
Mm-mm.
So once the property is theirs, it's never going to be anybody else's.
I was talking with a buddy today, and he was telling me from a missionary friend that a friend who knows missionaries in China, that they pay rent. The missionaries pay rent. Yearly like we do, but everybody over there, that owns a property really has a 99-year lease on their property.
Yeah.
They don't own anything.
Own it. Yeah, you rent everything.
And they all don't know what's going to happen when that 99 years comes up. It's like, what's been in their family for 99 years now, government could just say, no, you don't get to renew that lease.
Yeah,
it's
insane.
Ours again.
So, Ben, I do want to wrap up, man, but Ben, what final thoughts do you have for our audience? Because, I mean, you've given us, you've given us news nugget after news nugget, and I'm loving it. Okay, I'm loving it. I hate to quote, what was that guy's name? Just passed away. I feel horrible for not remembering it, but Herman Cain. Herman Cain said news nuggets all the time. Well, give us one just takeaway, because obviously you're really fighting this battle for us again. Not only did you do that in the military, with the Marines, but now you're fighting that battle for us. Especially for your people up there in Idaho. What takeaway can you give us that what can we do in this madness that's happening of 2020 and this craziness? What's one thing that you could leave our audience with that you think can help us really fight this battle and join side by side with you, defending the guard and really help making our country better? I hate to steal Donald Trump, but make America great again.
Yeah.
No. The biggest thing I would say, can't believe I'm going to say this.
Say it.
Say it.
Listen. Organize.
Yeah.
Organize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is not we have, there have been thousands and thousands of podcasts and YouTube videos and all these different things and interviews where people have talked about, oh, well, this might be the time. No, this is the time, people.
It is the time.
It's no longer might, it is.
Yep. I agree.
This is the time. As Sherlock Holmes would say, the game is afoot.
Yeah. Yep.
And, look, if you love this country, and you want there to be freedom in this country for your children, we can't wait anymore. So, as I said to the Hill, we do not concede. Not because Donald Trump is the greatest thing since sliced bread, because we all know that's a bunch of baloney.
100%.
Okay? We do not concede because it smells to high heaven.
Amen.
And we aren't going to stop pushing until we turn this government inside out and show that underbelly that we've been trying to get at for the last 4 years. That has to be our mentality going forward. It's easy to surrender. Be strong. This is not the time for timid men.
Yep.
So you either lead, follow, or get out of the way.
This is the
There's
way.
work to be done.
Ben, I love it, man.
Be about the business.
Ben, I freaking love it. Ben, I made a prophecy at the beginning of the show that this would be the greatest show in Plausible Foolishness history, and I think that we accomplished it here.
I think so.
In episode 142. And Ben, I really appreciate you for coming on our show. I really appreciate you for dropping just knowledge bombs, chaffing my khakis. I'm using that one over and over and over again, definitely stealing that one. And Ben, where can people follow you? Where can they support you? Plug yourself in, and then we'll wrap it up here, man.
Yeah, I've got a website, benadamsforidaho.com. It's FOR, benadamsforidaho.com. And I also have a Facebook, Ben Adams for Idaho. Give me a follow. I don't post a ton of stuff on there, but when I do, it's usually meat. I don't believe in drinking soup. It's time to eat some meat.
Amen. Amen, brother. Well, Ben, we really appreciate you for coming on the show today. You have been amazing. Rube Empire, man, the two kings. We just knowledge just got dropped on us, man.
I agree.
We got some knowledge bombs dropped on us, man, and we really appreciate you for jumping on the show today. We appreciate everybody for hanging in there for us today. We said we'd do this for an hour. We went, what, 2 hours?
Yeah.
And it flew by.
Yeah.
dude.
I was like, if I had a pen and paper, I would have been just taking notes feverishly. But that's what Dusty's job is over there for us, man.
We almost went full Joe Rogan.
We almost went full Joe Rogan. We almost went like a 3-hour show, man. We almost went Rogan. The only thing we were missing was weed and Alex Jones screaming in the background.
Well, hey,
you know,
that's why it takes 3 hours, because they're talking slower.
100%. That's true. That's true. But hey, we really appreciate you for jumping in, guys. Thank you so much for following us, man. It's been an amazing show, episode 142. Big thanks to Dusty putting this together for the third chair over there in the right hand of the Kings and our third chair over there. And thank you for connecting us with Ben. Ben, thank you so much for jumping in today, and thank you so much for dropping knowledge. Thank you for serving our country out
in
in
the military and in your state. That's awesome.
You're a real American man, and we really appreciate you for that. And geez, it's been another amazing night.
Yeah,
bro.
that was great.
And we didn't even get to talk about our amazing new chairs either.
No,
bro.
we didn't.
But hey, we'll talk about it next week, and we appreciate you guys for jumping in today. And we out, baby. We out. See ya.
Peace.
Hey guys, thank you guys.